everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the show. It is March 9th, 2022, episode 303, and we're joined today by the head coach at the University of Little Rock. It's Neil Erisman. Neil, thanks so much for joining us today. How was your Mother's Day?
It was good. Thanks for having me. We went to church. We cooked out. Took my wife to breakfast before church, and we actually just hung out. We just kind of relaxed a little bit, and so it was great. How about you?
It was great. We woke up. Actually, there's a trail right on the lake downtown. We took a little walk and then went to my in-laws with my wife and our kids, and they got a above ground pool, and we swam and had a good time and had some halushki. You ever heard of halushki?
I have not. What's that?
It's like noodles and cabbage and ham and sausage. So
Oh, nice.
all kind of cooked together. So tasty a little treat. But we're here to talk wrestling, and obviously you took over the job at Little Rock, what, 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, 2018, so 4 years ago.
4
and
years
we've
ago.
competed for 3 years.
Yeah, and so you had I don't know, a missed NCAAs that year, and then a really condensed last year. How nice was it just to get back and have some regularity to wrestling?
I mean, it was really our first. We had a full season our first year, but we wrestled the minimum dates. We had 22 guys on the team. It was a completely different experience than this first year. So, yeah, I mean, it was our first year in a full season, ready to rock, and it was awesome. It was awesome to be back to normal. I mean, you say normal, but you're still doing the COVID test and you're still doing all that. But as normal as to a real schedule and a full competition slate as possible. Yeah, it was awesome.
How do you assess the performance this year? Considering where you started at the beginning of the year, development with the guys, building what you need to build this team.
Yeah, I think when you talk about success, you kind of have to categorize it, as far as expectations and actual results and where you've come from, right? I think that our expectations are pretty high, and you can tell that by the schedule that we compete in, that we compete in, the conference that we're in, our recruiting that we've done. But we've been building since day one. And my assessment is that we have grown drastically. We've gone from boys to men. We have improved on the mat. I mean, just drastically from, where we started. We're in duels against teams that, have been around for, historically a long time. And we're going from not winning matches to, sending 6 into overtime or losing on a challenge. And all of a sudden, 15 seconds in a whole span of a duel and we win the duel, right? Like we're competing. We're right there. And I think that we've reached that point where we've had some really good guys, some guys do some great things, go to nationals and win a lot of matches. But it's kind of like this feeling of just this year, the bubble is about to burst here. And I think that's really where a lot of us are. And that's really what we feel. We really feel like we're on that bubble of just jumping to the next level and doing more than taking a guy to nationals, taking 5 or 6, putting 1 or 2 in on the podium and having several be right there around a 12. And that's just the season was a story of seconds, right?
Yeah.
A story of 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there, finish that single leg on the edge. And, you've beaten the top 10 guy again for the 5th time this year. Right. And so, I think that's where, really where we ended up was we closed the gap from really not even being in the conversation to, I guess, simple way to put it is, finish that single leg on the edge, and we're a whole different animal.
It's funny you mentioned something like a duel where you lose a bunch of close matches, right? Maybe you can feel good about it. When I was at Missouri, we lost. The first couple of years I was there, Oklahoma State just piss pounded us and whatever. And then the third year, I think it was, we lost 8-2 matches, but it was 1 or 2 overtimes, 1 or 2 second period reversal, and we came off the mat feeling good, and Oklahoma State went home pissed off, right? Was there an example of something like that this year that you can think of that you guys maybe you lost, but man, you felt good about it for whatever reason, something like that? Is there a duel?
Yeah, the first duel that comes to mind is the Oregon State duel. Man, I mean, we were scrapping in 5 or 6 of these matches, and it got a little tough at the upper weights, outside of heavyweight. But man, we had like 4 or 5 matches where it was like a challenge changed the entire direction of the match. We had a cradle locked up to win at 165, and it got stopped 3 times, and I think of the Oregon State match. What was a much closer match, looked kind of ugly on paper, but I mean, there was 4 or 5 matches where it changes the complete direction of the whole match.
Yep. So looking forward with this team, what excites? I know you mentioned earlier recruiting excites you. Anything you can talk about recruiting wise?
Yeah, I mean, we've got some good transfers coming in. We got our guys are now got a couple years under their belt, and they're more than competitive, and they're grown up physically, mentally, emotionally. And not to sidetrack too much, but the thing about the process of starting a new program is that everything is done for the first time. So you don't have, like when you were at Mizzou, you might not have that guy that's been there and done that, right? I mean, you had Askren, but when you are when you're at a program where you got 5 national champions in the room, or you got 5 All-Americans, or you got 3 All-Americans, you got someone to show you the way a little bit, and that's a thing that we've been missing. And in our recruiting, we've been able to build some real depth and some real competition in our room. Last year's freshman class was, by some rankings, a top 25 class. And then this year's, our class is probably a top 20 class. And we've got some young, good guys. Couple that with some older guys who still have 2 to 3 years left that are, I think we had 4 guys that lost to go to nationals in that match at Pac-12s, right? So with our recruiting and with our age and our experience, we're kind of primed to have a little bit of a come in and show you the way a little bit. And then we got some young guys that, as long as they're not afraid to step up, they could be making a huge impact right away.
How far is Tulsa from Little Rock?
3 hours, depending on how fast you drive.
So that's probably a pretty nice, a thing for you guys next year, having it in your backyard. But I don't think there's any school closer. One of the Oklahoma's closer.
But
you're pretty close.
OU is 4.5, and then Stillwater's 4, so okay. It's not too far. Mizzou's 5.5. Yeah, right, kind of right there.
Sure. Thinking about where you are as a coach today, developmentally, and then going back to when you first stepped foot into the room at UNC as a coach, how much have you grown? How much have you grown and developed? And I guess really, what kind of growth did you make at UNC? Or does that make sense? Next question here.
Yeah.
What'd you learn?
I learned. It's kind of like each stop you learn something or you learn a few things that have really changed the direction of how you look at it, how you work, how you wake up and think about it every single day. And when I was at UNC, I learned how to recruit. I learned how to recruit well because you got the academic piece that's very hard to navigate. You got the financial aid piece that's different. You got a different quality of student athlete, right? Like you got a student athlete who puts a lot of pressure on themselves academically. And so and then I was kind of in that world of, I grew up in the Midwest and recruiting kids from the Northeast and learning a whole different culture, a whole different way of life. And it changed my perspective a lot. being at Carolina helped me understand how, from a recruiting standpoint, how it's important to, you can't just go after a couple guys. You got to kind of cast a big net, right? And you got to really find, I guess what I'm trying to say is what I learned at Carolina was finding my fit. You got to find a fit of a kid that fits your school. You have to fit them. They have to fit you. And I learned that really, really quickly. And, you can get the best kid in the country, but if it's not a good fit, it's probably not going to work. I also learned that kids, you have kids that know who they are. But most kids don't. When they get to college, they don't know what they stand for. They come in as a wrestler and then they got real life hitting them in the face and, over and over. And so kind of learned to grow in my identity as who I am and to be strong in that and not to waver. That was something I struggled with in the beginning. Just being you're in an environment where you're in Chapel Hill. It's fun. It's the weather's nice. The campus is awesome. There's parties everywhere, and helping people really know who they are and stand up and stand out in those areas. Those are some of the things I learned when I got to Chapel Hill.
Sure. And I guess kind of same question, but like now in Little Rock, and obviously being a head coach, there's different responsibilities. There's nobody telling you have to figure it all out and delegate it and do it and make it happen and probably come up and create a lot of whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right when you say you have to do it all, right? It's not I have to do it all. It's it's more of like I have to. There's a whole set of different. You feel alone, right? Like you feel like you're alone at the top, and in the end, these assistant coaches can go find another job, and they can go do these things, and they can get out. Like this is our program, but essentially it falls on the weight of me, right? And of what my guys are doing, what my coaches are doing. So I learned quickly that after being here at Little Rock, like it doesn't matter what happens, I can do anything in the world. When you're starting a program from scratch and you gotta recruit 24 guys and you gotta fundraise and you don't have an assistant coach to start off, like it kind of hardens you up a little bit. And it really teaches you about the value of your time. Like your time's valuable. And I might have the same skill set as Bader, and I might have the same, speed, strength, toughness, technique, whatever. But what am I getting out of my 8-hour day versus what are you getting out of your 8-hour day? And I think I've learned that a lot here at Little Rock. And I think that's what separates a lot of people in our profession is, the value of your time. So I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot about creating and recruiting to a value system instead of just casting a big net and finding the fit. Yeah. I learned about recruiting to the things that we value and creating a value system that is a strong foundation that our program can be built on. And when you do that and you have a strong message, people gravitate to it because there's no way based on logic or what people would put on paper that we should be getting some of the recruits that we're getting and that we should be, where we're at in this short period of time. And, maybe that's just bias, but I truly believe that.
So you just mentioned a value system, right? Do you guys have like a defined value system that you're talking about, or is it more conceptual?
A and B, right? So when I sat down to apply for this job, I kind of created a 20,000 foot view, and I wanted to have a view of feet on the ground, right? So we started with, and it was ironic. One of my kind of the word that I wanted to build everything around was grit, right? Greatness, righteousness, intensity, and toughness. And then I add some other things in there like grace, and toughness, teamwork together. But really kind of base it around the word grit. Like let's be great in everything we do, whether it's academics, whether it's serving in the community, whether it's on the mat, whether it's how we think. Let's have that integrity and that intensity that you need when you're at this level of it all. It's all encompassing. Usually you see guys that are successful, they have kind of the whole package. right? So, and then, when it comes to righteousness, like doing the right thing, do the right thing at all times. We don't need team rules. If you have to think about whether it's right or wrong, you probably shouldn't do it, right? And then, just that toughness and teamwork together, doing all that together, that kind of encompasses our values, right? And so we kind of break it down and we say, these are the 3 things that you're going to focus on every single day, right? Number 1, you're going to live and wrestle for something bigger than yourself, whether that's your faith, your family, your background, whatever it is. We want you to have an identity in who you are outside of wrestling. And then number 2 is we're going to control the things that we can control on a daily basis. Attitude, effort, accountability, right? Like no one can, like, it doesn't matter your situation, Bader. No one can control your effort. No one can control your attitude, and you can always be accountable to the things that you said you were going to do. And then the last part is great relationships. Like iron sharpens iron, and that's a Bible verse that everyone likes to say, but it's so much deeper. Like you wake up and you got to fight with each other. You got to have each other's back. You got to serve with each other. You got to get out and help each other. Like there's a time in wrestling where, and I'm sure you saw it, like you might not be the guy, and part of you growing is serving him, or serving in the community and getting out and building a program around us. So that's really the 3 things that we tell people, and kind of the basis of our values.
It's interesting. You said there's no rules. Did you have team rules growing up in high school or college, or as a coach?
Yeah, we always had team rules. Now, don't get me wrong. Like we have our team contract. I'm like, hey, look, you want to be a knucklehead and you want to be reckless, and then you're going to break these rules. But I always start with, we got our contract, and that's if you want to be dumb, and then here's the actual rule, right? Do the right thing. And that allows them to process and make decisions, and not just say, hey, these are the rules we got to break.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a lot of rules growing up, for sure.
Okay. Not a big rule guy though. You should just know them. It's right, it's right, it's wrong, it's wrong. I get it.
I'm more of a moral person, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's create a set of standards and morals that develops who we are. And then through that process, we can identify that, hey, I probably shouldn't be doing that anymore, or that's not really who I am. Yeah. And I try to check them that way, and put them in check that way, so that they can move forward and make decisions that are great, and not just jump in line. Like there's going to be things you're always going to have to jump in line for. You're going to have some blind obedience in this world to make it. But let's create a solid foundational line that says, hey, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. And if you want to be a part of our program, you're going to have to get in line with that.
Sure. All right. I want to switch gears a little bit. Still talking wrestling, obviously, but name, image, likeness, NIL. It's a thing. Kids can get paid for the name, image, and likeness, and it's happening. Your thoughts on this ruling, I guess? Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, where do you even start? We kind of just chatted briefly about it before we got on here, but it's an opportunity for these student athletes to be compensated off of their name, what they built and what they've done. I think there's a lot of mixed opinions about it, right? Good, bad, ugly. I mean, it's here, and whether I like it or not, like we have to adjust to it. And I think it's going to change some more. Like there's just a proposed legislation that any booster or person that contacted an athlete up to this point and persuaded them to come to their team, there's going to be some punishment, discipline, whatever you want to call it. But NIL is a very broad topic, and if you I can keep talking forever about it, but like if you got anything specific, yeah, we can nail it out.
Sure. What do you know about these collectives, right? I believe these alumni groups and whatnot are coming together and putting together collectives. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have one? Is Little Rock have a?
We have a couple people, but we're working on some other things first to build our foundation. but I do know a lot about collectives. Yeah, I've heard a lot. I actually have friends that are part of a collective, and it's basically a group of people that are getting together and saying, "Hey, we know the school can't do this, so we're gonna take it upon ourselves, and we're gonna put the funds together and make it happen." And I think that's the natural reaction when the coaches aren't supposed to be directly communicating about NILs or working with. For sure. I mean, it's kind of what you have to do.
So you just said there's a proposed legislation to come after anybody who took or was persuaded, right? Are these people who put these collectives together allowed to persuade potential recruits, or
so?
How does
I think that is, regardless of how you want to say it, that's what's happening. These groups are putting together basically a board or a group through, maybe a potential nonprofit, maybe just a group of businessmen, to persuade student athletes to come to that university that they want to support. And man, it's such a slippery slope of how that's going to work, and this retroactive, what defines the people who fall under the category that previously had offered NIL deals to people, right? And I mean, and this still has to get approved. This is like just the NCAA saying, hey, there's a lot of this going on, tampering, right? We can call it tampering, where coaches are reaching out via, alumni or boosters or parents. There's a lot of these are rumors. I'm not saying I have any of these for fact, but this is just a lot of the talk. In a lot of sports, and they're reaching out to other athletes from other teams to make these deals happen. I think it originally set out to, probably in the original meetings, it was, hey, we're going to persuade recruits by creating NIL deals. But it's really moved into the transfer portal, and as you can see, that people are making a living off the transfer portal and packaging. Whether the coaches are involved or not, that's not my point. But these are getting packaged with NIL deals through these groups of people. So, man, I don't know. It's here, and it's about to be regulated, but I just don't see how it's going to work. I don't see how they're going to regulate it. You're going to go if you're calling people from Mizzou, or who's going to come ask for your phone records, or who's going to come ask for your email records, right? Like, I don't know how it's going to work. It's about to change. I mean, it's been changing for a while for wrestling specifically, but it's about to get much bigger and much broader.
And that was kind of my question. You had mentioned it at the beginning, right? You said it's going to change quite a bit. And do you have like a picture or I don't know, vision, but like how you think it will change, how it will affect and impact programs?
Well, I think that right now it's kind of unhinged. It is. There's big numbers being thrown around, and I think that's going to have to come back into balance, right? Because these businessmen, unless they're just willing to waste their money, which a lot of people are, there's implications. There's taxes implications. You have to justify why it costs you $150,000 to have that athlete, on your NIL. Like, did they bring $150,000 worth of sponsorship, if you want to call it, right? Well, the IRS doesn't look at it that way. So some of these people are going to give a lot of this money, and then, come a few years down the road, it's going to be like, well, I'm tired of not getting that tax break. I'm tired of not. So we're just going to do X, Y, and Z. So I think it's got to kind of run its course, right? It's got to run its course and then come back center. And I think when it comes back center, I think that these kids will be making some good money, but it won't continue to be this outrageous numbers that we're hearing, $150,000, $200,000, $100,000. I think it's going to settle back down, and I think that whoever can really create a profitable situation for the student athlete and for the business, or however it's set up, I think those are the ones that are going to be successful. And I think that there's going to be some people who are just not going to participate and say, hey, that's not who we are. We can help you on the back end and with some training and stuff like that. But I kind of see it getting cut loose and then coming back center, and then we'll really figure out what it is.
You think this is a good thing for wrestling?
I do think that it is helpful for the visibility and the growth of our sport. I'm not sure it's healthy from the standpoint of that gap might continue to grow, right? That gap from the top to the bottom, the haves, the have-nots, we might see a much bigger gap. And the issue with that there is that you're going to have the coaches that want to do this, or else they're going to sit back, and that's when you start to see programs get lost, and then they get lost, and then they get that big D word, the big drop word, right? And because they're not successful, they're not sending guys to nationals, they're not competing in their conference, right? And so it is good in a way because it makes us work harder and it makes us be more innovative. But it's not good if there's programs that aren't willing to do that and keep up, or be innovative enough to supplement instead of keep up.
Yeah, we could probably go on for days about NIL, but that's a good perspective, and I like hearing from you on that topic. There's one other thing I did want to get to, maybe two, but all right, you're a hero. I need to hear the story here. You said somebody was choking, you saved them. Where were you? Kind of walk us through the scenario and tell me how this happened and how you reacted.
Yeah, so this was, I don't know, maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago. It was a Sunday morning. My family and I were going to church like we always do. My son had a friend spend the night, one of his kids from his wrestling club, and I'm pretty punctual when it comes to being on time for church, right? Like, I really don't like being late for anything, but hey, we're going to be on time. We're going to participate and blah blah. Well, that morning it just seemed like if it went wrong that morning, it went wrong. Like, I got a new griddle and it wasn't working right, and I was trying to cook all these pancakes for all the kids and blah blah blah. And I was just okay with being late to church that day because it was just a nightmare of a morning. And my wife finally goes, "I don't know what you're doing, but I'm leaving, and I'm taking the girls. You take the boys," because we got a lot of kids. Yeah. So finally, I leave right about as church starts, about 9:15. So from my house to church, there's a boulevard, and there's a big ravine in the middle, and you can't just like cross the boulevard to get the other side. And so some businesses are on the right, some businesses are on the left, and I just happened to come around a turn or a big corner, and there's a bunch of new businesses over there: car wash, bank, tropical smoothie. And I look over and I just take a quick glance, and I see a lady doing the Heimlich just outside of her car, like up by the bank. And I just kind of looked and I was like, I didn't just see that. And so I kind of looked back again. I was like, crap. I was like, she's actually doing the Heimlich. It looks like something's wrong. And by that point, I missed the one turn that I could get really quickly. And so I sped up, and I'm kind of watching through my rearview mirror, and I'm seeing that people were just passing, like nobody's stopping. And like, clearly this lady is doing the Heimlich. So I speed up and I turn around, and I drive as fast as I can back, and I pull up. And I remember telling, I had 3 little boys in the back, 2 10-year-olds and a 4-year-old. And I was like, everybody close your eyes. Because I really didn't know what I was getting into, and I didn't want them to see something they didn't need to see. And so I pull up and I was like, hey, is she choking? And the mama was like laying across the front seat, exhausted at this point, like couldn't hardly stand up, talking to 911. And she was like, yes, she's choking on a donut hole. And so I asked 911, I was like, do you want me to do the Heimlich? And he was like, yes, absolutely. And so at this point she was unconscious. I think she's 12, 13 years old. And I picked her up and started doing the Heimlich. And it really wasn't working that well. I remember praying, like, God, please don't let this mama watch her baby die. And then all of a sudden I started hearing like every time I did it. So I just kept going. And then fortunately, I had her here, and I was kind of holding her up with my knee, underneath her and trying to do the Heimlich. And I mean, I was pretty tired at this point. Like, wrestling a match is hard, but holding up, what feels to be
You
a
were like
lifeless
standing?
body is, I was standing and trying to hold her up and do the Heimlich all at once. I mean, and then fortunately I got exhausted, and I had to sit down for a second, and I saw a lady that I knew. Her son plays soccer with my 4-year-old, and she stopped coming out of the car wash, which there had been like 3 cars go by. And I was kind of getting not irritated. I was pretty mad that they weren't stopping.
Yeah.
And she rolled on the window, and she was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, she's choking." And it just happened that this lady was a CPR instructor, so she knew how to do the Heimlich at a hospital. And so, which is another really cool God moment, right? Like just putting the right people at the right time. So she comes over, and I hold her up from the front, and the lady starts doing the Heimlich. We rotate a couple times, and then at this point, she was like, "We just have to do chest compressions because it's not working." So we lay her down, we start doing chest compressions. And this is probably about 1 minute before, like, I could hear the sirens at the time we start doing chest compressions. And I just kind of saw something shoot up out of her mouth a little bit, and air. You could see she was breathing, and her eyes came back. And it was, I mean, at that point, I really didn't think, I knew there was going to have to be a miracle for her to make it. And because it didn't look good at all. And finally the ambulance get there, they get her, they have to go to the hospital to get it unlodged. Thank God she's all right. They actually go to church with us, and I'd never seen them before. So that was, cool. We saw them the next week at church, and the little girl's perfectly fine. Especially for the 8 to 10 minutes that she was unconscious, like, she probably shouldn't be okay, but she's perfectly fine.
So I was gonna ask, was she conscious when you got there? How long were you there before? Well, was she conscious when you got there? How long were you doing CPR?
I think, and this is all a guesstimate, right? I know that it took about 8 or 9 minutes for the ambulance to get there. I think that the mama had just called 911 about the time I turned around, right? Because she was doing the Heimlich when I pulled by. So I was probably there from start to finish 10 minutes. And I'll be honest with you, when the ambulance got there and they got her, I texted my wife and said, "Sorry, I missed church. Like, I'll explain when I get done." And my wife's like, "We just finished worship. Like, there's no, like, church is just starting," And so it seemed like an eternity in the moment, like it really felt like forever.
Sounds like you didn't think she was going to make it. Did fear, panic, like, can you describe how you were thinking? In that 8 to 10 minutes, it felt like an hour.
So I think, number one, like, I think it's the way God made me. I don't think that most people are as, like, I always say it as a joke like this, like, I'm like a dog, it's like a squirrel, right? Like, I'm always all over the place, and I just happen to look over, right? And so at that point, like, I think I was maybe kind of trying to talk myself out of, be like, that wasn't what I thought it was. And then I was like, no, I have to look. And I looked, and I would say that I was like, okay, I got to do something, right? And then when I pulled up and I realized it was, from a dad perspective, when I realized that it was a mama who could no longer do anything, I think that's what just kicked me into, like, all right, God, whatever you brought me here for a reason, I'm going to do it. And I kind of say it like this, like, you think you have courage until you do it. And then you don't have courage in the moment. You just do it. You just act. And then you realize how courageous it was to do it in the moment. Right. And so it takes a lot to just jump in. I think my thought process was really basically, like, number one, I'm here for a reason. I'm never late for church. Number two, I'm a dad, and this mom needs help, and I would want someone to help me. And and it was really hard to like I said earlier, I was just praying, God, please don't let this mama watch her baby die. And I think that I didn't feel any pressure on me. I just didn't want this mama to see this. And I think
Yeah.
that was kind of a big part of my thought process.
Yeah. Sure. So you said she coughed or breathed or something,
Mhm.
but was the thing still stuck?
So it was still stuck, but she was,
Had a pathway.
she had I mean, when I tell you it was a piece, it was a small, small piece of donut hole. And I saw it just come up out of her mouth as the lady was doing the chest compressions. And so at that point, like, you could see the life come back in her face, and it was like, oh my gosh, she's okay.
Yeah.
Like, we kind of kept looking at each other like, where's the ambulance? Like,
Yeah.
and then we saw that, like, and then unfortunately the young girl had a seizure. So we had to roll her over, and that was part of a bigger, she has what's called Angelman syndrome. And I'm not exactly sure what's part of that, but that's part of her syndrome that she has. So she was kind of having both, choking and having a seizure, right before the ambulance got there. And so we rolled her over and then got her back, and it was just wild. I mean, it was a lot. There's probably more to the story, but like, the more you ask questions, the more I can remember of what happened in the moment.
Yeah. Did you? I don't know. Okay, I'll see you. Or did you stick around and talk to the ambulance and tell them what happened? Or I don't know.
It was extremely odd because the ambulance pulls up. It was the firefighters got there, right? And then the ambulance was shortly behind them, and the police officers were right behind them. They got there, and she was breathing a little bit, so they really didn't do much. They kind of just took their time, and like, me and the lady were kind of getting frustrated, like, hey, like, we got to get this out. Like, and they were just taking their time. They didn't do a whole lot. They put her on the stretcher and got her into the ambulance. I felt like they were pretty cold to the situation. They were obviously had either been around it a lot or knew she was going to be okay, but they didn't say much. And we kind of walked over, and we hugged the mama, and we were like, we'll be praying for her. Just hope she's okay. And we asked the ambulance and the firefighters and police if we needed to say anything, or they're like, nope, you're good. And it was like everybody just left, and there wasn't much discussion about what happened or anything like that. They just showed up, took her away, and that was that. And we walked away, and I went to church.
That's crazy.
It was really, really odd. It was like the lady looked at me, and she was like, that helped me. And she was like, well, I guess I'll see you at soccer on Friday. I don't know what to say. Like, she said that to me, and I was like, I know, I don't really know what to do. I'll see you later. And I just got in my truck and drove to church.
That's like such a unique, not even the right, doesn't do it justice, thing that happened. Experience.
Yeah. And for me, like, I'm looking into, like, how can I get all my guys CPR certified? Because being in the moment and saying that you're going to help is completely different than being in the moment and actually helping.
Yeah.
And it was like, my mind went blank when it came to what I need to do. And I just listened to the 911 operator, which was great. Right. But like, you kind of, now that I'm prepared for it, I've done it, then I'll know what to do next time. Right. Like, I couldn't think about how many chest compressions I needed to do. I couldn't think about exactly where my hands needed to be placed. Like, so I really want my guys to be able to do that, because that's not a feeling that you want to have to show up and be like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Yeah. I can't YouTube it right now.
No, I can't. I don't have the time for that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. You can't YouTube it.
So I don't know, the mom, right? You said when you showed up, she was maybe just laying in the car seat, almost at the seat of the car, almost exhausted. Yeah. Not that she gave up, but just probably throw her hands up. What when you're out here with the CPR lady, what's the mom doing the whole time? She stay in the car? Did she finally come out?
So there was another lady who showed up who was very grateful for her. She kind of helped hold the girl up the last couple minutes with me and the other lady. And then the mama was just praying over her daughter, which I thought was really cool, because what else can you do as a mama, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just screaming hysterically, she showed her faith really quickly, and it was pretty awesome. She was crying and she was upset, and I think, after a couple of minutes, she was able, and the other lady got there, she was talking to 911 the whole time and praying, and she was kind of giving us like, hey, she has seizures, she's seizing. And so we would, roll her over, and the mama was helpful, and she was, we were definitely grateful for her prayers at the moment, because it was a God moment for that to even end the way it did. And I think it was all combined, like, together. Like, I'm a wrestling coach. I move bodies for a living. I can pick a body up, right? And the mama couldn't do that. And the lady had CPR. She knew what to do. And the other lady, the random lady that stopped, was, she was encouraging and loud and helpful in her own way. And the mama was just letting her emotions take over and help us, tell about her daughter, of like how we can help her in the moment, and praying over her. And it was like a cool little, miracle that happened, that God put all the right people in the right place at the right time.
It's a fascinating story. So I don't know, it awkwardly, or kind of maybe abruptly, weirdly ends, and you just kind of go your separate ways. You go to church. Did you come in and tell, like, when did you tell your wife, and how, did you wait till the end after church? Were you like, you're never going to believe this?
Well, so I think that I remember walking in, and like, I had like cut up my elbow. I have no idea how I did it. And
probably sweating.
I was sweating, right?
Yeah.
And so I had my boots and my jeans on. I completely sweat through my button down, and I was not shaking from like being scared. I was physically exhausted. And so I walk in, and I remember, I think I texted my wife and said I had to stop on the side of the road and help do the Heimlich to someone who was choking. I'm on my way. Because at that point, I'd already texted her and said, hey, I'm sorry I missed church. And she was like, we're just getting started. like, you got time to come if you want. I understand if you don't. And I was like, no, I'll come. So she was waiting for me at the front. And I just, like, I actually asked one of the campus pastors, I was like, I need like 10 bottles of water. And because it was like you just got done with like you just wrestled 15 matches and you can't stand up. Like, that's what it felt like. And I was just exhausted. And it was a lot less. I think it was a lot of emotions, but also like it was physically hard to hold a human being up like that and try to help them.
I mean, I can only imagine like the adrenaline running through your body as this is happening, and then more slowly, like you said, 15 wrestling matches, along with what's at stake and what's on the line, and the whole situation.
I just kind of sat there the rest of church, and I was like, just grateful. I had a big sense of gratefulness, and I was like, never buying donut holes for my kids ever. That might sound funny, but those thoughts go through your head, your head. And, I really, really thought as church went on, like, I just need to know if that little girl's okay, and I think that was the big thing that got me at the end. Was like, when I heard she was okay, it was like, all right.
When did you find out she was okay?
About an hour and a half after church ended, because the lady actually runs all of the kids ministry at our church. She's in charge of scheduling everybody, and she had texted a bunch of the pastors, and one of our good friends is a pastor at the church, and like just gave me an update. Like I don't know how he found out I was involved, but he gave me an update about an hour and a half after, and it was all better.
Were you just like wound up the rest of the day? You know what I mean? Like, you can't like undo that.
It was like leg day, where you, like, when you walk, your legs are heavy.
Yeah.
I remember that. Like it was like leg day all day. My legs were heavy all day, and it was just like he was just heavy in general, not just physically, but like mentally and emotionally, and not like I don't want you to feel for me. Like I honestly feel bad talking about that. Like I've been on the news 3 or 4 different times, and because the mama kind of has to relive it every single time that it's on our local radio and
Yeah.
news station. But that heaviness was lifted a little bit knowing she was okay, but it was, I don't know, man. It's a hard thing to describe when you're trying to tell someone that, like, when you saw someone who looked lifeless for so long and then barely came back and it didn't necessarily look good when she left. Like that's a heavy feeling the rest of the day.
Man. Crazy. Oh, so what'd you say when you saw that mom at soccer practice the next time? You guys just like,
She was, she was pretty tore up about it.
yeah,
She was like, I had to take a couple of days off of work. Like I didn't know that she didn't know her like I knew her. She didn't know that she was okay. So she was, distraught, thinking that, maybe this little girl had died. And she was kind of upset about how the firemen and the ambulance just were pretty cold to the situation,
yeah.
and she was like, she's like, I had to take a couple of days off of work just because it was so hard to just think about that little girl and that mom. And so once she found out,
Did you
she
tell
was
her?
okay.
Or
No,
you?
she had found out somehow, some way that
Yeah.
she was okay. Like there was a long Facebook post by the mom just saying thank you to these strangers.
Yeah.
And, I think a day and a half later or something like that, 2 days later, and she happened to. So where we live, it's a town, and they have a big Facebook group, and so they posted it in there. And basically, if you live in our town, you're a part of that group. So she saw it through there somehow, and then they connected them. There's a bunch of people that knew. So she was doing better by the time I saw her, for sure.
Cool. Well, congratulations. That's an awesome thing. Thanks for telling that story. That was a pretty detailed story. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions to ask. Man, we pretty much covered it all.
Yeah. I think we covered the whole story. I think the main point that I want to point out is that God is good, even in the good and the bad, and that was a moment that there was a bad situation and He was good. So
Awesome.
that was
Okay.
all Him, not me.
Well, you did something. We got one more. So Kyle Klingman, you know Kyle, right? I think he usually joins us, but I think he's traveling home from Women's Nationals. But he has a segment called "Sweat It Out." Okay, and this is 5 questions designed to make you sweat. Are
Okay,
you ready to play?
let's play. Let's roll.
Okay, number 1. Where did Greg Hatcher attend college?
Alma College in Michigan.
No. What former Kansas City Chiefs football player is known as the Nigerian Nightmare?
Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna get this, but I know it. Gosh, dog it. I should know
You want a
this.
hint? His name
Sure.
that's Nigerian.
Well, is that a hint? It was in the question.
I know. Well, yeah. No.
Gosh, dog it. I'm gonna have to say I lose this one, and I'm embarrassed.
Christian Okoye.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed, and I'm a Chiefs fan. Did you know that?
I would assume Kyle did. Yeah. He wrote these questions.
Dang it.
He probably looked at your Facebook page and saw that you liked him or something.
Kyle, we're gonna ham fight for that hard question.
What Kansas City Royal hit 390 during the 1980 baseball season?
Man, that was before I was born. I'll have to say George Brett because that's about as close as I can get.
You got that. What famous actor from Winterset, Iowa, has a real name of Marion Robert Morrison?
Oh, John Wayne. My son's name is Duke, and we named it after the Duke.
Okay.
John Wayne.
There you go. What country music singer was born in Kingsland, Arkansas?
Kingsland. Well, I know Justin Moore's from Arkansas. Kingsland. Would it be Elvis Presley?
No. This guy wears one color.
Man in Black?
Johnny Cash.
I did
Got
not
it.
know that.
Neither did
I
I.
know I know there's a big town up by Memphis designated to Elvis Presley. That's why I said that. So
Gotcha. All right, man. Well, cool.
that was
Yeah.
close. That was close.
You got 4 out of 5. You got 4 out of 5. You passed. You got a B, I think. But we're gonna give you the final word. You know, I've enjoyed talking wrestling, talking life-saving situations, and everything else. But yeah, you have the final word here to say anything you might want to say about anything.
Say about anything. Well, number one, always be prepared to act. That's something that I would encourage everyone to do. It's a big deal to be able to jump in and do it, and it's another thing to say it. So always be prepared, and don't turn blind eye to things that you see. Even if it's as simple as pick up that piece of trash you see, do the right thing, right? I'll say that, and I have to say it again because it's incredible. God is good, and whether you see Him, feel Him, or know Him or not, He's good. And then lastly, get on the Trojan train, because this bubble is about to burst, and you want to be on the train. You don't want to be ran over by it. So we're excited about what's going on here in Little Rock. We got some great things going, and you can be a part of something special, something different, and something that is very unique, and you can help grow something from the ground up. So get on the Trojan train, Bader.
All right, man. Appreciate you. You're either on the train or you're under it, right?
That's right.
Get on. Neil, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Continued success to you and Little Rock. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bader.
Thanks. See ya.